What's up, you guys? This is One Classic Gamer here. I'd like to welcome you to my review for Ghost in the Shell. Now, I just got back from seeing this movie, literally, right now. I just got out of the theater, and this is an interesting one. This is an interesting one. I'll say it right now. Now, this movie is based off of the popular Japanese anime Ghost in the Shell with the same name that came out in the 90s. I don't know too many details about it. I actually have never seen that Japanese anime at all. I was excited going into this movie. I was kind of excited because I like Scarlett Johansson, but at the same time, the other half of me was kind of cautious at the same time because I had no idea really. I knew what the story about this. I knew the story to this movie, but I didn't know everything about this movie. I've never seen the Japanese anime, so I was blind going into this movie. I had no idea what to expect. I knew the general story, but everything else I was kind of blind on. So since I have never seen the Japanese anime, I'm basically going off of what this movie told me. And what can I say? Well, I can say that after seeing this movie, I kind of do want to watch the anime now because I really liked this movie a lot. Now, I'm a huge fan for futuristic movies, and this movie is visually, it's like extremely breathtaking. The city and just the holograms and the lights and the colors and the neon style, everything about this movie, like the cyberpunk style, like it just looks so like pretty and just so lived in, and it feels like an actual world. And this movie is just, it's very breathtaking and it's impressive as hell to look at. Now, the story of Ghost in the Shell, I don't really want to say much about it. I'll just give you the general synopsis of it, or at least what I know. It takes place in the far future. I think the year is 2029, I think. I'll put the text up if I'm wrong. But basically, it takes place far into the future where humans and technology are kind of mixed. You got all these humans that are just getting all the sorts of cybernetic enhancements. People are, you know, half human and half cyborg. And then you got people like Scarlett Johansson where they literally they take your brain and they put it in this shell, and the ghost part is your mind and the shell is basically the machine part, hence the name Ghost in the Shell. And Scarlett Johansson is a character called Major, and she is part of a military organization called Hanko Robotics, and she's part of Hanko Robotics, and she's a military troop in Section 9 of the city where they hunt down terrorists, basically. And there's this one terrorist called Kuze that's going around hacking the people's brains and doing all sorts of fucked up shit. And Scarlett Johansson has to figure out what is going on with Kuze, hunt him down and kill him, basically. Or she has to hunt him down and find him, while she's also struggling with trying to remember her past, too. She's getting all sorts of glitches and like flashes in her brain that she has no idea. She goes through some shit in this movie. That's all I can really say. I don't really want to say more because I'm afraid that I'd be spoiling. I would be spoiling this movie if I said more. But this movie, it has a very, what can I really say? I mean, it has a by the numbers plot. There's some things to this. This movie's plot is pretty cliche, but it executes it in such a unique way that it didn't bother me. I was intrigued with this movie, and I enjoyed it. And Scarlett Johansson is really good in this movie too. The action is really good in this movie. Like I said, it's visually breathtaking. The action is really good. I'm hearing some people say that they don't like the fact this movie uses a lot of slow motion in its action scenes. I'm hearing a lot of people say that they don't like that aspect of this movie. It never really bothered me. It fit with the movie pretty well, and overall, I was pretty entertained by this movie. I really was. My only complaints about this movie would have to be the fact that there's technically two villains in this movie. Um, one being Kuze, and the other one I'm not going to say who it is. But by the time you get to the second villain, he just feels kind of lame and just kind of inserted in there as a plot device so that Scarlett Johansson can remember her past. And I never really cared that much about the second villain. I thought the first villain was really cool. Kuze is really cool. But the second villain is just kind of meh. He's just kind of there. He's just a plot device. That the resolution to this movie, like the resolution to it, I'm not really gonna say anything else, but the resolution to it uh, felt a little rushed. Or I mean, it wasn't that rushed. It was by the time you get to the resolution, it's just kind of surprising the way everything wraps up. It wraps up really fast. And it's not really a disappointment because I like the way this movie ends. It was more of like I felt more like it felt more to me like by the time this movie wrapped up, it was more like I wanted to see more of this world. I wanted to see more of it because it was really interesting and I was very intrigued by this movie. So yeah, I mean, Ghost in the Shell. If it, from what I've heard, it adapts the anime pretty well. I've heard that it kind of dumbs it down. It's not as deep as the original anime, but they actually did a pretty good job at making it make sense for people like me who have never seen the anime. If you just pay attention when you watch this movie, you'll catch on to it. This is one of those movies where you'll watch a scene in the movie, you'll be like, "What?" And then like a couple scenes later, they'll explain what happened in that previous scene. So they got you in this movie. They got you if you're confused, and it does a good job. And it also, from what I've heard, it does a good job at adapting the anime too. I was actually watching Chris Stuckman's review for the original Ghost in the Shell before I saw this movie, and I noticed some distinct Easter eggs in this movie thanks to his very in-depth review of the first film. Because I watched his review of the first film because I wanted to get a general idea of what this movie's plot was like, just in case I wasn't confused when I went to go see it. So overall, Ghost in the Shell is really good. It's just the second villain. He's just kind of a plot device. He's just kind of there. Um, the resolution was kind of sudden. I mean, it's okay because everything leading up to it was really good. And for the most part, I would say, actually, I'd say like 95% of the CGI, because this movie is very CGI heavy. 95% of the CGI and the visual effects in this movie were amazing. But there is a sequence at the end where it didn't look terrible, but it was kind of it looked a little worse for wear compared to the other scenes or the everything else that was digitally added in previously in the movie. It wasn't bad, but it was just kind of noticeable. Like the CGI, it blends really well in this movie. This movie's not like 300 or anything like that, where you can tell there's green screen everywhere. No, the CGI is really good, surprisingly. It's just that last action sequence. There's some parts in there where the CGI looked a little fake, but other than that, I really enjoyed this movie. This is one of the more standout action movies I've seen. So I'm going to give Ghost in the Shell a 9 out of 10 because I am intrigued and I want to see the original Japanese anime now. So yeah, that was my review for Ghost in the Shell. It's actually a pretty entertaining movie. Even if you haven't seen the anime, I'd still recommend you go out and watch this movie. It's not just a mindless action film. It does focus on its story and it does do it pretty well. So yeah, go and see this movie if you haven't. So if you guys enjoyed this review, please comment, rate, subscribe. And if you're probably wondering, if any of you are wondering, by the way, where the Breath of the Wild videos are, the Zelda Breath of the Wild videos, they are a-coming, okay? I'm on spring break right now, which means I have all the time in the world, or not all the time, about a week to play through Breath of the Wild, and I'm trying to beat the game 100% right now as we speak. So I've been doing nothing but just record, and play the game for the past 3 days, and I'm going to continue playing it. And I'm going to try to beat it 100%. within this week before I go back to school, and that means it's going to be really hard for me because I'm probably going to have to edit through about 30 hours of footage, but I'm gonna try to have the game done. I'm pretty close. I have all 120 of the shrines now. I'm about halfway through with the side quests. The Korok seeds, I still have like none of those, but um, yeah, I'd say I'd guesstimate probably guesstimate. I can't believe I just said that. I'd estimate that I have probably about 5 to 10 hours left of the game. So I'm going to try my hardest to beat it 100%. So yeah, the Breath of the Wild videos, they have not stopped. I'm still playing the game. But yeah, that was my review for Ghost in the Shell. I know I went off and talked about something kind of off subject for a little bit, but if you guys enjoyed this review, please comment, rate, subscribe, and I will see you guys later. Peace.